Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to this live webinar brought to you today by Logistics Business in association with Aptean. My name is Peter McLeod, I'm the editor of Logistics Business Magazine, and as always, it's my great pleasure to host this webinar. Now, we all know many of the biggest challenges for logistics service providers today lie within the final mile, in the lead up to that important ultimate handover of goods to the end user or consumer. So in this episode, which is entitled The Technology Revolution in Last Mile Delivery, we're going to be looking at how automated platforms can help businesses that are struggling to meet or exceed their delivery KPIs and to help them optimize their operations across a number of key aspects. Now, I'm delighted to welcome back a true expert on the subject, namely Luke Robinson. He's International Sales Director for Aptean. Welcome, Luke, and thank you for joining us again today.
Always pleasure. Good to see you again, Peter.
Good to see you too. It seems like yesterday, but it was actually May 2024 when we last did one of these things together. So nice to have you back on the screen with me. Now, before we get stuck into the topic of automated delivery platforms, just a very quick bit of housekeeping, as you'd expect with a live webinar. Now, we encourage you to take advantage of having Luke's knowledge and experience on tap today by dropping a question into the Ask a Question function, which can be found on a tab in the GoToWebinar menu. I'm sure you can work it out where that is. I can see it in front of me and mine. We'll leave plenty of time at the end for Luke to reply to as many of these questions as possible. In the outcome that perhaps he won't have enough time, we'll try and get back to you in writing with a specific response. And I think I should really get things probably underway by saying thank you to you, the viewer, for joining us today and hopefully sticking with us for the next 45 minutes or so. We appreciate you taking time out of your working day, particularly at such a busy time in the global logistics calendar, a time when the last mile is being put under the most extreme pressure. In fact, I'm sitting today in a warehouse which is fulfilling this Black Week's consumer demands, and it's a very exciting place to be right now. So Luke, I'll just get right into it first of all by asking you to set the stage for the conversation today. Give us a brief overview of the challenges that businesses are facing when it comes to the last mile, and will hopefully lead us into ways in which we can help them overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Peter, and yeah, to echo your point, thank you to everyone on the call. We do appreciate you taking time out at the end of November at a very, very, very busy time of year. So the main thrust of the challenges that we discuss with our prospective customers, it's the same as it has been for some time, but the problems seem to be getting bigger. It's cost and it's service. So at a very high level, the cost of moving goods or service personnel or delivery, B2B, B2C, the physical cost of doing that is becoming prohibitive for some customers. So we're always looking at ways in which, how can we mitigate that cost? How can we reduce it? And then also the expectations of customers. I think we'll come on to it. But the general term seems to be the Amazonization of things. 5-10 years ago, I think people were happy, perhaps in the B2B world, that delivery would be made at a certain time, whereas now they expect to be able to demand it. They want to be fully in control of it. They expect to be able to track it and know when it's coming kind of down to the minute. So the main overall challenge is, for time immemorial, but the kind of getting worse, for want of a better word, is the service provision that the end customer is demanding, and then trying to mitigate the cost both to help with that service provision, but also mitigate the general cost of getting things delivered or a service offered at this time.
Yeah, for my sins, I'm one of those demanding consumers, I have to say, and
everyone is, Peter. It's not just you.
we only give our those retailers a single shot most of the time, and if the last mile experience is poor, then they'll potentially lose our business. So it is considered as a necessary cost within logistics, but you're proposing that actually it could be more of a value driver than a cost center.
It most certainly can be. So walking through this again, it's that expectation of customers. So there is a very clear expectation now that the customer receives a much better level of service than perhaps they did 5-10 years ago. So that last mile, you know, we work across countless verticals, but let's take B2C retail, for example. That customer may have gone into a store. They might have had an interaction with a number of salespeople. They may have tried the product. Let's say it's a piece of furniture. They might have sat on it. They might have taken their time to decide what color they want it, what style. They've gone through payment. They're understanding where it's going to look. They get excited about what it's going to look like in the house. There's a real journey that's gone on there. And then all of a sudden, this kind of this sunk cost center, well, we've actually got to get the thing from a warehouse or a DC into that customer's home. Or we've got to get that service personnel there for a carpet fit. Or we've got to make sure we hit that supermarket's correct delivery time for a replenishment delivery. So we've got to make sure that that experience, which our customers and generally people are putting huge amounts of money, investment in time in to make the journey as enjoyable as possible for the end customer, we've got to replicate that through the last mile. So we've really got to give end customers the confidence when it's coming, how it's going to come. Do you want to put a driver name on it? Do we want to be able to track it? So there's no bumps in the road at that last piece of this journey, and that's becoming critical now. We've touched on it already 3 times in the first few minutes. 5-10 years ago, it began through getting small parcels through the door, expecting to be able to track it to within an inch of its life. Across B2C, B2B, internal deliveries, service provision, that is absolutely what the end customer is expecting. So we've got to help define that experience in the last part, as well as the journey that they've been through before we get the thing to them.
I may be a little naive here, but surely businesses today that are delivering direct to consumer, for example, they're all pretty sophisticated, aren't they? They've all got these fantastic digital systems going. Surely you're not telling me there's still paper-based operations going on out there, or are you?
Huge range, Pete. So we work with, if we talk about people that have come on board with us in 2025, we have a significant number of new users to our platform where we're replacing other systems because they want a certain level of complexity to be held. They want to increase the routing capability to save money, as to our first point. But we've onboarded I should have looked this up before. I'd be amazed if they're not a top 10 UK retailer, B2C, and they've moved away from paper. So that was creating the schedules on paper, giving that paper to the drivers, giving a piece of paper to the end user, then taking that piece of paper back, hoping no one drops a cup of tea on it, trying to find the piece of paper, scan the piece of paper, hope the scan's readable, then pull that back into the ERP. So there is a range of people that have kind of dipped their toe in the water of automated or sophisticated systems, but then it's shocking. It's still shocking to us how many major operations are still doing it on a whiteboard.
And also, does the same apply for Excel? I imagine there's some probably long in the tooth logisticians out there who love an Excel spreadsheet for all their order planning.
Yeah. So if you look specifically at routing, so just the scheduling part of things, which again, it falls into cost and service. So if we can save 20% on the transport costs, that becomes a really big number really quickly for people. And also if we can get a time slot in a route that we know is going to be accurate, we know what the dwell time is, we know what the traffic's going to be, we know what the road speeds are, we can then provide that to the customer ahead of time. So again, we're able to give that level of service. But a regular challenge that we come across, when I say we, I mean both us and the organisation that's interested in putting software in, is the fact that it's always been Bob or Jane who creates the runs. And he or she has that knowledge in the head. And it has to be Fred that delivers to ABC Limited, because Fred knows the guy on the gate, and he knows you have to reverse the van in, and he knows what the security code is. So part of it is understanding how we can take all of that knowledge, all of that relationship that's already been built, and how can we put that into a cold system. So if it does need to be Fred that does that delivery, or more pertinent ones, if there's a level of nurse that needs to continue on an in-home visit because of a care plan, We need to make sure that we incorporate that from, as you've said, Peter, from an Excel spreadsheet. Can the system ingest that data and make a cold decision while still respecting the warm human-to-human pieces that need to happen at the end? And that's something that we take pretty seriously. But yes, huge amounts of people still using Excel.
So in logistics across the supply chain, everything's becoming digitized now. We call it the technology shift, as we're moving stuff away from these archaic, outdated practices and into the cloud and into digitized solutions. So what does it mean in practice for a business then to make this shift?
Yeah, so take the example of Bob or Jane making runs in the head schedules, or it could be service personnel, it might be opticians visiting in home, it could be delivery of tins of beans. There are thousands and thousands of businesses out there that are still doing that, for want of a better word, manually, either on Excel, on a whiteboard. They've got some route plan somewhere that's been going for 20 years with bits added to it and taken off it. What we look to try and help is move away from that. So move into a much more digital space with it. So a system where we can pull the details in, we understand any and all weird and wonderful constraints. So it has to be delivered before a certain time. It can't be on a certain vehicle. It requires service skill type X. It can't be this vehicle if this product is already on it. If there's a certain value over a vehicle, we don't want to do that. In pharmaceuticals, it can be to do with the value of the goods on it. It could be to do with the skill set. There are thousands of these variables that have been managed manually over the years, or perhaps introduced into entry-level platforms. And what we look to do is try and help people bring that in so they can create their routes in a much quicker way, and they can also eliminate inefficiencies. So we back this up by doing data analysis for people before they commit to us. So we'll take a week's worth of what they did and actually run it, but we'll kind of hang our hat on 10% improvement. And that's if we're replacing other systems. It's incredibly difficult, in my opinion, to manage routes manually in your head or on a piece of paper. It's incredibly difficult to do. So that's one part of kind of this technology shift. And then the other big part of moving across to it is to do with, well, we've created all of these perfect shiny routes. That's wonderful. What do we then do with them? Let's say it's deliveries, are our drivers following the routes as they should? Are we pushing that out to the end customer? Are we capturing the fact that we delivered the aforementioned sofa to Mrs. Smith? Was it on time? Have we taken photographs of it? Do we have a disclaimer? Where is that information? Are we pulling that back into the ERP? So those two differences, the ability to understand and derive efficiencies, significant efficiencies, by using a platform to create the routes, and then by using electronic solutions to execute those routes, we're kind of eliminating any human errors that can take place. We're realizing significant financial benefits because the routes are costing us a lot less money. The end customers are a lot more happy because they're getting almost over communicated to, and all of that data is available in this new world to be ingested back into back-end systems for invoicing, stock reconciliation, whatever it may be. So it really is a shift is a very good word, because that's exactly what it does.
Now, I imagine the majority of our viewers don't want to look at the faces of two middle-aged blokes talking about logistics. So I'm going to draw their attention to our wonderful slide here, where we're talking about some of the values that come with this technology shift. So you've explained a few of those already. For example, yep. You're eliminating, for example, inefficiencies and errors. What are some of the other benefits that an end user or a customer can expect from digitizing their planning?
Yeah. So again, two levels, I suppose, of the word customer. One would be kind of our customer, the person using the platform, and then the person receiving the goods or service at the very end. So the cost is obviously the critical factor, which is, to be frank, the main reason that people come to us to have a discussion. What efficiencies can we gain within our fleet? But it's also that complexity element. So that can be really onerous on planners. You know, we've actually had, you know, sod's law, we've had an inquiry in this morning where a planner is spending 9 hours every day, 6 days a week, as their business is scaling significantly, I have to say, but they're spending 9 hours a day, 6 days a week, just to keep up with maintaining the daily plan. That's not the way that you want to be working. If that's a fleet manager or a transport director, they should be directing the transport fleet, reacting to issues which, you know, with the world we live in logistics, issues is just something that we deal with. So the first additional bit would be that element of complexity, the weird and the wonderful. This product can't go on with this product. This customer must be served by a certain vehicle or a certain resource or a certain skill set. That's no issues for us. We and our customers are really big on continuous improvement. So it's all very well our sales team saying we can save you 15% or 19% or 24% day one. That's obviously huge, but what can we do year on year on year? So actually, if we think we constantly deliver to location X and it should take 17 minutes, if the past 30 times we've been, it's taken 45 minutes, why? Is there something that we can do? Let's report back on that. Let's show those discrepancies. Let's have a chat with that customer. Have we got the parameter wrong? Is it difficult to get into and it takes longer to offload? Or is it the fact that we're being held up because actually, if we went half an hour later, we'd be able to go straight in? So CI is, our continuous improvement is a really big part for us. And just one last bit on this slide, always desperate to make these things not onerously techy, but the expectation of 99.9% of our prospective customers now is that we know what we're doing when it comes to cloud. People don't want to install software on a piece of tin that lives in the back of the office that we pray that somebody doesn't turn the electric plug off. The expectation is that we have a very solid dedicated platform, which means that when our customers need the software, it's there and it's available. So that's, again, I would consider that a key benefit of the way that the industry as a whole has moved in the past 5 years.
I guess I need to jump in here. You know, we all know about the Marks and Spencer cases, Marks and Spencer Co-op, Jaguar Land Rover cases, where data security has been a challenge there. So how can you assure your customers that their data isn't going to be compromised?
Yeah, and it's not just retail clients as well, Peter. It's software suppliers as well have been hit by this. So as you would absolutely expect, this is an incredibly serious area for us. So we've got a digital team. This isn't something that we have as an add-on to support or something that's seen as an additional part of the software. There's a dedicated team whose job it is to keep the green line in the middle. So we back that up contractually. So that's a 99.9% uptime. Software requires maintenance. We need to put updates in. We need to put upgrades in as well. But we keep that very front of mind with our customers. But it needs to work when our customers need it to work. So kind of malware attacks, data provision attacks are something that we're on 24/7, 365, because if we're not, it's a problem.
Yes, absolutely understand that. Now, I know there's a lot of AI fans out there. I'm going to keep them waiting a little longer before we move on to that. So what I want from you now, Luke, is like a hard and fast customer case study. Give us some examples of, you know, pick a customer where you know you've done some good work for them and you can show me some results.
Yeah, no worries. So we've been working with Wren for a number of years. So Wren, I'm pretty sure everyone will know who Wren is, but Wren's a major kitchen manufacturer and supplier. They're in the UK, they're also in the US. 2 main manufacturing sites, DCs and depots across the UK and expanding into the US. And they've also moved into furniture of late as well. We've been working with Wren for quite some time. The initial issue, and it's interesting, we started the fact this cost and service has always been the problem, but it's kind of becoming, for want of a better word, worse. Even in the relationship we've had with Wren, which is a number of years, it was the same issue. Manual processes, we can't support growth. It's costing us too much money for that final mile element. And we can't help with service. We're getting big, complex, bulky goods out of the depots. That's a problem in itself, and we can't really delight that customer by giving them, a absolute blue ribbon service. So again, it's the inefficiencies, it's the cost around those inefficiencies, and it's inability to provide that high level of service. So by incorporating automated solutions, we got rid of 15% of the miles. Now, for a fleet of the size of Wren's, 15% in miles is a large financial consideration. It also allowed their business, because we were able to consolidate the final element of the journey into a much quicker piece. It allowed us to improve the actual lead time to the customer by 60%. And also an increase in resource utilization. Now, resource utilization is a word that we use, or is a term that we use. It means getting more things on vehicles. I'm never a huge fan of it because we're calling drivers a resource. It's a little bit cold, but it is also just the world that we live in. If we can get an extra 10% onto a vehicle, physically onto a vehicle, which means that we could expand our business by X% without having to buy 20 more vehicles, hire 20 more drivers, onboard 20 more staff, that's critical for us as well. So problematic before, costing a fortune to get the goods out the door. The goods are super complex. We're not moving tins of beans. It's kitchens. They're very complex to move. We're not giving the end customer a blue ribbon experience. Now with Wren, saving a significant amount of money on routes, customers selecting when they want the delivery, and the customer being over communicated to as to exactly when it's coming. So there's a hard and fast example.
Yeah, that works for me. I have to say, you look at those numbers and then you run them into whatever business you may be operating, and it'll come out sounding pretty good. And I guess there's also an intangible benefit there, which is that of customer retention, which we can't really put a number on, but it's obviously a direct result of great customer service. So we promised the AI fans something out there. We know that you can't do all of this in your heads. So tell us how AI plays a part in the solutions that you're proposing.
Absolutely huge. It's probably been the driving topic in our industry for the past 12 months. So a couple of things, in my opinion, there's where do you start with AI? So what's your starting position? Are you miles behind, or are you kind of already there? And the fact that our algorithmic solutions have been in play for coming up on 33 years. So we've kind of been using AI for 33 years. It's an algorithm. And the algorithm gets more powerful the more data that we put into it. So we feel that we're in a pretty good place to kind of start with. But the last thing we want to do is rest on our laurels. So I'm unsure if we have any Paragon experience on the attendee list here, but we've been operating for 32 years. We've recently introduced the new version of Paragon, so the next generation of Paragon. And one of the main drivers of that was the ability for us to open up different AI streams as well. So as well as the algorithm creating the actual run, what if you have a job that you just physically can't get to? It's outside of a shift pattern, or it's not within a region that you have zoned within the plan. We want AI to be able to move ahead and prompt our users what would be the next best thing to happen. Actually, if we give that off to a subcontractor, that would work. Or here's an overtime calculation. Does that make sense against a profitability calculation that we'd use against that particular job? One of the beauties of Paragon, as we've mentioned, is the fact that we can handle significant complexities. So if product 1 and product 2 can't be on a vehicle, we can set rules around that. If it's a particular skill type, we can use Fred, Jane, Pete, and Luke, but we can't use somebody else. That does sometimes require amendments to the config, and that can be complicated. Now, we're here to help. Of course we are. We don't give you the software and then wish you the best of luck with it. We're here to support our customers on a daily basis. But AI also helps if you want to make a slight change. So an opening time for a customer, rather than actually physically finding that config tool and opening it up manually, you can use AI to do that for you. So key that into a natural language query assistant, press the button, and off we go. So AI is huge for us. We're actually just in the midst. It's going to be the end of November that we release the next version of the next gen platform, and then I won't go through them all, but the features in development are all the vast majority of what we have in dev are going through testing at the moment is around AI. So you can see self-calibration, exception management is big. If rather than having somebody, we keep failing deliveries because the customer's not there. We can pull a report. That's brilliant. Let's have a talk about it. But what can AI do to help us with that? Are there underlying trends that are difficult for a human to see within the data? So AI is absolutely huge for us.
So once again, Luke, I'm hearing AI is the perfect co-worker rather than the threat that's coming to wipe us all away.
Yeah, so it is a conversation that we have. I mean, I can only really talk to our sphere. I've been doing this for forever, so I'm not by any means an expert in a million industries. But some people want the routing platform and even the execution platform. Some people want that to be kind of fully automated. So there's a process where, let's say tomorrow's jobs come in, the system will route them and we'll push them out to reporting or send them to a warehouse management system or print out some lead sheets or send them down to a driver device. We've got other people who want to engage directly with the software, which I think we'll come on to for more high level strategic, well, what ifs, how can we do that? How can we do that? So I'm in complete agreement with you, Peter. AI is a co-pilot. AI is it's a project team member that can bring significant advantages, but you still need somebody to actually be running the ship.
Before we jump into strategic, just wanted to say, I travel around, as you know, many of us do, from conference to conference, and we're all running around saying, what about my margins? Okay, we know about costs. We say, what about my, labor challenges? Well, we can probably overcome those with, these sorts of solutions, et cetera, and then eventually we come down to, what about my carbon footprint? So I want you to perhaps just spend a couple of minutes talking about businesses who have a real concern about the amount of carbon they're burning through.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, huge range. So when we start discussions with people, sometimes carbon CO2 sometimes it's a driving factor into the decision to move ahead with software, and then sometimes it's not of importance. It depends what the goals are around that customer. And in fact, if you were to take 5 company reports from, let's say, 50 retail organizations, you'd see a wide range. Some of them will be front and center. It's absolutely crucial. Some of whom are not concerned. It leads into EVs, electric vehicles. Again, some people absolutely on a full EV journey. They are going to electrify their fleet. Some people, EVs not for them. They want to maintain the fleet as they are at the moment. The end result is, if we can take vehicles off the road, or reduce the miles that those vehicles are doing, or incorporate 7 visits into one, or allow a business to scale by 25% without having to purchase and utilize another 25% of vehicles, that cost element logically has to reduce the CO2 emissions that the customers we are using. More specific examples of that, we look after a relatively large retailer. When you're on their website, picking when you want something to be delivered, they mark that as an eco slot. So the one that our system is saying the most logistically efficient, they're marking that as ecologically efficient, because that's a main thrust for those guys. We also look after a company it's a food subscription company, and they're really, really heavy on environmental factors. So actually, there's a huge mixing desk behind the covers of Paragon. Again, it's always going to be the most efficient route is going to be the most CO2 efficient route as well. But we even have a marker within the system where we can dedicate the algorithm to be more weighted towards the CO2. So an example of that would be, if you've got something heavy on the vehicle, get it off first or second. because that's going to reduce the emissions in the vehicle moving forward. So yeah, again, it's a huge, really big swathe of people. It's critical for some people, not a huge concern for others, but it is because it reflects on what the cost is, or the hidden cost, or the sunk cost for the transport fleet.
I'm going to bridge us into the sort of the strategic realm now by touching on the big subject of visibility, supply chain visibility. You know, where does the strategic value lie because of the enhanced visibility that you bring?
Yeah, so we use the word strategic in two main ways, really. So strategic is internally strategically for our customers. So visibility is key, really. We're driving at ROI, as you can see on the screen, but we're getting full visibility across the piece. So we understand what is the best place to put, let's say, delivery, which is the exact best place to put that delivery onto a given run, a given driver, a given vehicle, a given service resource. We're then actually conducting, let's say, the delivery, we're capturing the information, we're getting 3 photographs, we're doing a disclaimer, the customer's rating is out of 10, whatever it may be. We have all of that data visible within our system and visible outside the business, outside of our platform. We're pushing that back into BI, we're pushing that back into ERPs, WMSs, order management systems, whatever the customer requires. So that full visibility end to end allows our customers to make strategic decisions internally. What should we do about this? How does this work? Is this working well? Then we have the ability within the same platform, same license, same logons, same everything, where you can look high level strategically. So we currently have 12.5 ton vehicles. We're coming up for releasing. If I was to increase 20 of those vehicles by a certain size, let's look at last 6 months worth of data. What would that mean for me? I'm considering opening up a new depot in the northwest. I have 3 potential depot locations. I know what the costs would be. Let me plug in 3 months worth of forecasted orders or tasks. Which would be the best depot location for me? Tender management is massive for our customers. So there's a new piece of business, we'd like to go after it, but we want to know how much it's going to, we don't want it to be a guess, we don't want it to be a sunk cost, we don't want it to be, as we said at the start, that forgotten piece of the puzzle in logistics. We want to know how much it's going to cost. So let's pull in that tender data. It's this level of customers, it's this many deliveries, service, visits, whatever it may be. Let's physically run that through the system to understand in black and white what that's going to cost us, which will then inform our tender. Now, if we get those 2 bits right, so we're able to constantly improve by having the visibility front to back within the platform, and then we also have the ability to run high level blue sky thinking, you know, insert cliche here, but actually using data to drive that, it means you're future proofed. It means you're future proofed. It means you're getting everything that you possibly can out of the cost element of what we do. You're getting everything out that you can to delight your end customer so they come back to you or they want to work with you again. And as things change, contract changes, new opportunity, different scalability, want to increase depots, want to change fleets, fleet makeup, you are completely covered by the ability to run data-driven models to help you with those decisions rather than guessing to some degree.
So I imagine the implementation of a digital solution gives you a big step change in terms of operational efficiency and then all the benefits that come with that.
Yeah.
We talked earlier on, or you did certainly, about sort of incremental improvement, continuous improvement. So does this sort of digitalization that companies are going to be relying on, does that enable them to do that improvement, and they have the tools to make these smaller steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always kind of a big bang improvement if you put scheduling and execution software in. It's kind of the driver for why people make the commitment. So your transport spend is X, but let's say it's 5 million a year. If you're looking at, let's say, £2 per mile, or 5 million miles, whatever it is, let's say it's £2 per mile. If we can save 20%, that's a large amount of money early on in the project. It's just a large incentive for people to adopt projects like this. But we don't want to just stop there. We want to use that execution element to understand where can we do things better. So I'll give you a concrete example of that, which also links into the strategic element. We look after a food service company that deliver predominantly to petrol stations, forecourts, things of those ilk, and all of their customers were absolutely insistent that things were delivered early in the morning, usually between 3 and 5, because they want the shelves to be stocked before they start getting busy. There's no huge amount of logic behind that, because it's not a daily product. It doesn't perish after 24 hours. These things can live on the shelf for quite some time. So by we put the software in, save money, everything's great, change control, drivers are happy, this is wonderful, but then let's use the system for further incremental elements. So they ran the system. Well, what if we just expand those windows slightly, go back to the customers? Not all of them said yes, but a significant proportion were happy to extend the window, 7-figure saving. So it's not just, listen, the main thrust is always going to be the initial start point of the project. You press the button, we start saving a large amount of money, and we have that provision to push the service level through the roof. But we also want to look at it marginally over the years to squeeze, can we squeeze another 2% out next year? Can we change the way that works? Why do we always have a particular dwell time for this? What if we had a different resource type for these types of deliveries or service? That's critical to make sure that our customers are wringing every ounce of benefit they can do from the software, rather than just putting it in and then keeping strong for the next 10 years.
I think you've brought that nicely round full circle, where we at the top we posited the last mile as being a necessary cost, and now what you're describing is something that becomes a very much competitive advantage, and not just an immediate advantage, but one that it's the golden goose that keeps on laying. It's a long-term competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, we have to be consultative with our customers. We have to get to know what they do in order for us to be able to speak correctly and knowledgeably about how we can help. But we're not there to then dictate how things happen afterwards. However, let's say 5 million miles a year, let's say £2 a mile, which is probably generous total cost, and there's 10 million. If we can save 20% for a small mid-sized company, there's 2 million. What do they want to do with that? Do you want to reduce the cost of your goods? That means your sales are going to go up. Do you want to incorporate that into different initiatives? Do you want to look at expansion? So it's absolutely a case of getting the things out of the door, or providing end users with the service provision that you do is going to cost you money, and it's a lot of money. We want to mitigate that as much as we can, and then, as you say, if we can turn that into a competitive advantage, all the better.
So, Luke, I've got a few questions that have come in here. I'll just run through them. There's three or four here. I'll pick this first one. The question is, how many verticals does Paragon support? And I guess what we're talking about here is kind of the range, breadth, the variety of the kind of business that you're working with.
Yeah.
We talked about kitchens. Yeah, maybe just give us a few sort of parameters around the kind of businesses you're dealing with.
Okay, so our heritage and the largest part of our business, I suppose, is still T&L, so transport and logistics. That's pallets, that's full loads, that's large trucks, that's store replenishment. It's any number of B2B and B2C verticals that you can think of. So we support people who make chimney parts, we support furniture, we move chicken effluent, we move samples, we move people. So yeah, the verticals are absolutely ginormous. Where we're also seeing, I think we touched on it earlier, is also that provision of service. So if you're interested in having some blinds fitted, you know, it kind of used to be ring up, oh yes, we have someone in the area, we'll be in contact. No, we want to push that out to the customer. Your salesperson will be with you on Thursday between 12 and 2. The salesperson goes, it's a successful visit. Your measurer, surveyor, will be with you next Wednesday between whatever time. So this movement into service provision, so that's in-home medical, it's carpets, it's skill sets, it's installs, it's disposals. That's very, very large for us as well. But it's always lovely when we have inquiries from somebody doing something weird and wonderful, because it keeps the old grey matter moving, I suppose.
It absolutely does, and I'd love to see your strapline next, saying "from people to chicken effluent." I'm sure it'll go down well.
Yeah.
So we've got a question about implementation, as you probably expect. I think it's sort of front of mind for a lot of people when they're talking about taking the digital journey. So who handles implementation? What does implementation look like?
Okay, so that's us. That's our team. That's an in-house Paragon team. We don't subcontract it out. So before people make a commitment to us, we provide what we call a statement of work. So this is essentially an outline project plan, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, exactly how we're going to do it. As we touched on a little bit earlier as well, very often we will support business cases by taking a week's worth of data. So we've already got a head up on what does the configuration need to look like, what does that interface file need to be. So we try and get as far ahead of the game as we can do before people commit to us. But then when we're ready to move ahead with a project, it's a dedicated professional services team. We provide all the interface information. Some people interface only in inverted commas by flat file, or it can be API. It's completely up to the customer. And then it's us that hold the hand of the customer to get them live. Everybody wants to be live as quickly as we can, but we want it to be safe. We want it to be de-risked. And we want it to work right out of the gate. So we have an in-house team who will be there to support every step of the way. People who've decided to make that commitment, because it isn't just signing a contract and then hoping the software goes in. It needs to. We understand it's a big change for our customers, which is why we have a dedicated team to help.
Yeah, you've spoken very well about the sort of the human side of implementation. This question coming in, how would you typically support the changes for the planner and for the drivers? Some of the, your software engineers, but I guess you have to be people engineers as well.
Yeah, or yes, or to be probably more honest about it, we need to be people engineers for the people who are responsible for the project at the client side. So we need to make sure that we're making life comfortable for people. So if you're a planner and you're doing it manually, and there's the consideration, well, we might bring planning software in, that can be a concern. We get it. And we touched on the top, Paragon can be used as an automated system, but we will always want that expertise of the planning team to put that knowledge into the system and apply it. If people want to use it for Paragon to do 98% of the heavy lifting, that's absolutely fine as well. So what we tend to find from the transport element, and that inquiry we've had in today with the 9 hours a day is egregious. It is. It's not often quite that bad. But if you're in transport or you're managing a fleet, we don't want you spending hours and hours a day tearing your hair out about your planning. Paragon is there as a tool to really support that going through. Now, again, you've said drivers, so for concentrate on delivery, but it's equally applicable to service personnel, nurses, you name it. When we're creating the plans in Paragon, I've bashed everybody on the head 20 times today with cost. We don't just put it in hoping that we're going to make or save a significant amount of money. When we create the plans, we are drawing out the road network. We're not going as the crow flies A to B. We're drawing out the actual road network with the road speed parameters. We are calculating dwell times. So for customer 1, it's 5 minutes. We're dropping something off. For customer 2, it's an hour and a half. We're taking 3 things. We're dropping 1,000 things off, whatever it may be. So because we're actually making these true to life, we're making them accurate. We want to make the driver's day fair. So it isn't just a case of, well, if we absolutely crammed 1,000 things on, yeah, but we're expecting the driver to drive at 100 miles an hour average with a 30-second dwell time. They have to be accurate, because we must maintain that promise that we've given to the customer. If we're late because we can't, the system has expected us to fly there, we're missing that promise to the customer. And I'd be shocked if people don't agree on this. We need to look after drivers, because driver attrition, driver retention is a crucial part for nearly every one of our customers. So very important that we hold the hand of the people who are putting the system in and will be utilising the system, and also making sure that the drivers are comfortable about any changes that may be coming their way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Well, it's been terrific having this conversation with you, Luke. Thanks ever so much for conveying to our viewers and our listeners those many advantages of adopting this technology. I say it frequently, but it seems to me that the last mile is still the least optimized of all the functions within the supply chain. But I do believe that technologies such as those pioneered by Aptean, for example, Paragon, will go a long way towards making such a statement obsolete. Thank you to Aptean for supporting this webinar, and thanks again to you, the viewer, for joining us today for this latest webinar from the Logistics Business Stable. As well as checking out our channel on YouTube, where a recording of this webinar will be posted, why don't you also take a listen to our growing archive of podcasts? Wherever you get your podcasts from, please subscribe to Logistics Business Conversations to make sure that the next edition is delivered straight to you as soon as it's released. Until then, it's goodbye from Luke.
Pleasure. Thanks, Peter.
You're very welcome, and it's goodbye from me, Peter McLeod. Goodbye.